Hello and welcome to Pursuit of Perfect System. This is the start of the Dolby Atmos project, which is going to be taking our reference system to Dolby Atmos Level. And this is the kind of looking at it just literally as an overview of what we might need to do with that project. So stay tuned, there's going to be some really interesting stuff to help you go through the project as well. Unless you've had your head buried in the sand or you've been living in an underground bunker for the last couple of years, if you're any type of home cinema enthusiast, you're already going to know what Dolby Atmos is. Now, for anybody that might not be fully aware, Dolby Atmos is a new form of codec which has height channels or ceiling channels which add like an extra layer of resolution to the sound, obviously in a different plane, like a vertical plane, and that's supposed to give us a more 3D and a more immersive sound field. That is really the kind of nuts and bolts at it, and there'll be a link, some links in the description of some more detailed, content if you'd want to go and watch it. So what does that mean for the home cinema enthusiast? Well, it means, more speakers, a bigger sound field, and a more 3D sound field. And there's lots of technical things that it means, obviously, as well, but I'll leave those out for now. I'm always the case of, if you're gonna do it right, because if you do it right, you do it once. And there's been so many times in this hobby where I haven't done it right. Well, that's not been the case. I felt I was doing it right and I actually wasn't, and I've had to do it again and sometimes again and again. And obviously that's not the case. I don't think that's necessarily the case with something like a Dolby Atmos setup. I think you need to plan it, and I think you need to prepare for it, and I think you need to get it right, because some of the stuff you're going to need to do is like infrastructure stuff, and you're not really going to want to change that once you've done that once. So to me, there's some big things that I want to look at and just quickly discuss with you in terms of, I think, the importance of taking on a project like this, because it's so different to a normal home cinema setup. Now, anybody's at the build stage, anybody's building a new room or a dedicated room, or have got the ceiling down, and they're in a position to be able to run their cables and stuff for a Dolby Atmos project, or for Dolby Atmos, even if they're not doing it now for the future, make sure you do it, because a couple of years ago, I was in a position where I could have done it, but I wasn't interested in it at the time. Now there's no infrastructure for it in the cinema room. That was a mistake, right? That's one of these things, do it right, do it once, do it right. That wasn't, I didn't do it. Now it's going to be a whole, ball ache situation where to get it in. So even more important that it's planned and stuff. So let's quickly look at, some of the major implications of trying to put, an Atmos system in there. The first thing you need to think about is space. Now, there's lots of things to consider in terms of space. We need to consider the space of where we're going to put all these extra speakers. So 4 speakers on the ceiling, and potentially 2 more speakers, a bass layer at the normal layer. The system in there currently is 5.2. So we've got 3 speakers at the front and actually 2 speakers on the rear wall. And that gives us our sound field, which is the best I could do because of, just domestic restrictions for what I've got available. Now, I've been thinking hard, because I remember seeing and listening to it was actually a podcast where they brought someone in from Dolby, I think it was, that was doing testing for Atmos. It might not have been Dolby, it was someone professional that was doing testing. What is more important, the bass layer or the height layer? And they actually found that having 7 channels on your bass layer gave a bigger performance improvement to having 5 channels and your 4 ceiling speakers. So at the moment, the system's only 5.2, so I need to make that 7.2. So that's one thing for space. Now, if you've just seen the RKM AV R850 review, you know this is the product that I'm intending to use as the processor, and actually going to be the power amp for 5 of the channels. I'm actually going to use it for the center channel and the 4 base layer rear channels, our sides and our rears. That's the intended use, obviously, for this. And then it's going to link out to an integrated power amplifier designed for music and the front, left and right channels. And then the plan actually, potentially, is to go for another power amplifier, 4 channels for the height channel. So that's kind of what I've got in my mind as a basic plan, for kit and for layout. But then, you need to factor in, space for all this kit. And if you see the rack situation that I've got, and if you've seen any of the videos, you'll see it. There's lots of kit in there already, mains purifiers, Blu-ray player, audio PC. Then you've got to have space for DAC integrated amplifier. Then you've got this, another power amplifier. So there's a lot of boxes and there's a lot of space and a lot of power as well, a lot of power points. And I'm big on high quality power, so a lot of power conditioning and stuff that's got to go on as well. So it's not just space for your speakers that you need to think about, it's space for all the kit that you might need as well. So to me, that's like a major implicator. It's like, can I do this? Have I got the space for it? So I'm committed to the project. So I've already one step ahead. I've already made myself an additional rack space. So basically I had two hi-fi racks, podium reference, sitting there with a gap, and actually a monitor audio centre speaker stand in the middle that the centre speaker sits on. So what I've actually done is taken the centre speaker out. I've made a bottom layer base. So it actually looks like one big bottom layer of a hi-fi rack now. I've made that out of, kind of frame, kind of timber frame thicknesses of wood, and actually some kitchen cupboard excess that we had from a brand new kitchen fitted a few years ago. So I've just used bits that I had lying around the house, and they're perfectly designed bits obviously for the job. And the good thing about covering everything in black is that you get away with some shoddy workmanship, so you won't even see that. And then I've built like a rack framework to go up above for the center speaker to sit on. So now I've created space. So I've got a bigger bottom layer and more space for more boxes. So that was doable, and that was relatively inexpensive and quite easy for me to do. However, that was a thing that I've had to consider: space for the kit, and I've got to find a way to get side speakers, rear channels, side channels, left and right in the room, and they might have to be sort of staggered in their approach. So that's something I've got to overcome. That's a major challenge actually that I've got to overcome. The next thing I think is, in terms of overall category, is advice, getting advice. So, I suppose if you was building, an extension on a house, you would speak to an architect to design the plans for you. If you was booking a holiday, you might speak to a travel agent for them to give you advice on where would be the best place to go for the holiday that you would like. And if you get a funny stinging sensation when you have a wee, then you'll go to see a certain type of doctor to get some advice obviously on that. So for me, going into an Atmos home cinema system is something I've not done before. It makes sense for me to go and speak to people that are professionals, that are very experienced in doing those, because there'll be things that they've learned from trial and error which they'll be able to help and impart their wisdom obviously on me. So I'm planning to go and speak to at least 2 big home cinema installers. Some of them are very big. One of them is very big, in fact, and I'm going to speak to them because they are professionals, and they're going to be able to give me impart their wisdom obviously on me, and I'm going to share that with you to impart the wisdom obviously onto you as well, because the more ideas and the more good ideas that we share, the easier a project's going to be, and probably the more probably make it more accessible for you to take it on as well. And because there'll be lots of things that you won't have even considered, and I know there'll be things that I haven't even considered as important or as doable or as options. And I want all of the advice, all the options to choose from, so that I can make the best approach obviously to go forward, and so that I get it right first time, and don't have to change things. The next major category is the equipment choice. There's a lot of options out there now. Atmos is a big thing. Lots of companies making different speakers, obviously, for it. There's different AV products for it, all in one boxes or multiple box solutions. So choosing the equipment, again, is very important. And again, it's the sort of thing you're going to want to get right first time. You're not going to want to be replacing things. And, I'm not one to believe in, buying for the sake of it, or buying it just because it's cheap. Because if you buy it just because it's cheap, down the line you're going to want to replace it again for something else that you really wanted in the first place. So back to do it once, do it right, do it once. Now, with speakers, obviously the advice is always have all the same speaker, which is obviously an ideal situation. That's not going to be possible for me, because KEF reference speakers, they don't make on-wall speakers for starters, and 2, they're just too expensive. To build a whole system around KEF reference, they're just too expensive for me personally. If I could have that, that is what I would have all day. But it's just too expensive for me. I cannot afford that. So I'm looking at what other options KEF sell. Now, unfortunately, KEF don't really sell on-wall monopole speakers. So I've actually looked at their CI range, a custom install range, which is kind of the in-ceiling or in-wall speakers that they sell. And I think I'm going to have to go down the route of manufacturing my own cabinets, obviously, for those. And that comes with major positives and major negatives. Now, the positives are you can make them the shape that you want them, which is great. The negatives are you've got to make the boxes and you've got to get it right. And some bits in there and stuff. So if that's the process that I go, that'll be a whole video series, because there might be people out there considering doing the exact same thing. Because actually knocking some boxes up out of MDF is actually quite simple. It's getting them the right shape, the right size, and the finish really is the difficult part. But that's actually very easy when you cover everything over in black material, because again, you don't bloody see it anyway. So that could be very interesting. And again, that's not a definite. There's options obviously to consider when we look at that stage, obviously, of the process. And I think the last thing to really consider is all of that is expensive. All of that takes up a lot of time, and all of that is a lot of effort and potentially a lot of heartbreak if it's not worth it. So is it worth it? Is it worth putting ceiling speakers on the ceiling? Is it worth running cables all around the room? Is it worth the expenditure of extra boxes? Is it worth messing around and getting things how they need them to be? Is it bloody worth it? Is Atmos worth it? Does it add that much to the home cinema experience to make all of that worth it? So that is really the big one for me. And I'll be honest, up until now, I've not had a demo that's made me want to get the checkbook out and get stuck in. I haven't had it. But as it says, Pursuit of Perfect System, you do not know what you missed until you try it. So it's essential that we try it, and I think I won't be able to tell you whether it's been worth it or not, obviously, until a considerable amount of time after I've done it and had a chance to listen. So that'll be really interesting, because then I can impart kind of my wisdom and my honest appraisal to you. Has it been worth it? And lots of people, I'm sure, have done this already, and there'll be hopefully lots of comments and stuff made below for people that have done it. Maybe you can give me some tips and some advice through the process as well as we make the videos. And there'll also be an article, an in-depth article on the website, obviously, as we go through. So hopefully this has just been a little bit of kind of a teaser, really, a little bit of wet your whistle in terms of what the plan is for the Atmos project. So currently I've got a plan in my mind, right, basics. I've got a basic plan in my mind of what I would do. So if I, had the money here and I had to have it all fitted by the end of the week, in my mind, this is what I would do. However, there's a good chance that there'll be some mistakes in here. So I want to check off every single stage as we go through and make sure that come the end, after I've run that calibration, set everything up, sit down and go, wow. And I don't go, ugh. That's really what it's all about. So I hope this video has been interesting, just as a little bit of a taster of what, of what's coming up in relation to the Atmos project. So if you see videos titled that, roughly what it's going to be in it. So the initial thing is space, and I've started that already. As I mentioned, I've started all that. So I'll probably skip that stage from a video point of view and cover that as we go. And the next stage is going to be really going to speak to some professionals and talking to them about the Atmos systems that they're setting up. Do they think it's worth it? What do they think it's added to the systems that they've installed? So that's what I've got coming up next. So please keep an eye on the channel. Obviously, for that, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you haven't watched the review for the Arcam AVR 850, please go and watch that review. And please visit the website, because it really helps and support the channel. And the more you support the channel, the better content I can bring you quicker. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.